new headquarters. Welcome to the home of Shift Connector. It is really a great pleasure to announce Dr. Felix Hanisch. Felix Hanisch is a leading and well-known expert in the digitalization of the chemical and pharmaceutical industry. He has worked with Bayer AG in Leverkusen for 23 years and is one of the foremost authorities in the process automation technology there. In the early years of his career, he worked with several plants in Germany as well as in the United States. Later, he held several top corporate positions within Bayer AG. Felix is the president of NAMUR. NAMUR is the International User Association of the Automation Technology in the process industries. And since 2023, and I think that's why you applauded so much, he has been leading the Bayer crop science manufacturing site in Muttenz, so he is now also part of this region. Please welcome Felix Hanisch.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Andreas, for the warm welcome. Thanks really for also allowing us to have this peek into the Eschbach family. And I wasn't aware that the actual family would also be here, so that's really a particular honor. I really appreciate that. But also then the company family, it's a great occasion to join you here. So. Great pleasure, and when you asked me, I didn't hesitate to take it on, and I know it's a challenge to meet the expectations here, so thank you very much. I would like to share with you all a little bit about the journey that we had together, Bayer and Eschbach, and linking it back a little bit to the Industry 5.0 topic that Andreas already mentioned. And for me, the phrase is connecting people and data for better. We as Bayer have the slogan Science for a Better Life. So this is where this for better comes from. But I like the ambition that you showed. I'm also eager to see all the results of your co-creation during this week, as we are, I think, especially in Muttenz, always a site that wants to adopt the latest technology. Yeah, so looking forward to that already. First of all, big congratulations to this marvelous office here. I had the pleasure to get a guided tour in a very private setting 3-4 weeks ago. The building was there, clearly the outlines were there, none of the decorations was there, none of the workspaces was there, and it's come a long way in just that short period of time. I'm a firm believer in working together physically, and it's a bit boring, I know. But indeed, that's where people spend a lot of time during their working life. And the energy that you described, I think, only comes up when we meet in person. Yeah, we are social beings, and to provide an environment where you also appreciate being together is essential in a time where you can do a lot of the practical and day-to-day stuff online, but getting the team together is important to create that team spirit. And so from that point of view, congrats to Team Eschbach. What teams can achieve if they really have this clear focus, and 200,000 plus is a very clear focus, but what teams can achieve, we as Bayer, and also I've been living in Leverkusen now for quite some time, could experience last Sunday. Yeah, and so what you see here is the working space of the Werkself, yeah? And they collaborate with 30,000 fans in the stadium, and including the game last night, 44 games undefeated in a series, finally winning the championship, even though the season is not over yet. You cannot imagine the relief that went through that stadium when that was clear. You can also see here in the bottom corner that the picture was actually taken from one of our team members in Muttenz. Andreas Greb is a passionate follower of the club since his childhood days. Yeah, and he was there in the stadium during the game and afterwards, and he sent me more pictures, also pictures of location where he said, I don't remember how I got there in the night, but it was just fantastic. Yeah. And I think that's what we are looking for also in our work environment. How can we ignite at least some of that passion in our teams, that working on a common mission really is focused and a joint initiative from the team. That's actually an endeavor that we as Bayer are embarking on, because the spirit that I could feel just in the few minutes that I'm here for 104 people, our new CEO, Bill Anderson, would like to reinstill into our company that has 100,000 employees now, and I think that is a challenge, and I really look forward to seeing you grow and maintaining that spirit. Right, and it's difficult to have that when you have a lot of people, when you have a lot of shared responsibility, and somebody's doing this, somebody's doing that. Have you talked to the guy in communication yet? And then things get lost. And we're trying to reestablish that, and that is currently something high on our agenda. If you look at the Werkself over time, obviously the club was founded in 1904. That were completely different times. If you consider what soccer was like at that time, fortunately here on the left side of the picture, you can actually see the soccer ball. That was a leather ball. And if you were playing in Leverkusen, which is close to the Bergische Land, where it's raining all the time, that thing got darn heavy. And if you had to kick that or head that into the goal, that was a severe headache. Fortunately, the company had a product for that, but so the technology has tremendously changed, right? So today's soccer balls are high-tech pieces. I had the pleasure to work for two companies on the chart that you had there earlier, because that was Bayer, and then I was also part of Covestro when it was spun off from Bayer, and we always were proud of providing some polyurethane components that went into the Adidas soccer ball, and I mean that's a marvel of technology, right? I mean very lightweight, little deformation. Tons of studies have been made on the ball so that it is ideally designed. And so you can see that soccer today is by no means 11 guys getting together and women also to play a fun game, but it is data-driven, it is analytics-based. AI is counting the number of passes, attempts at the goal, corners, kicks fully automatically nowadays. So also, something trivial like soccer has tremendously developed over time, and I think that is symptomatic also for our industry. So maybe looking at the different industrial revolutions, but also kind of linking it back to the company I have the pleasure to work for. Bayer was founded 1863, so we are 160 years in business and trying to revitalize our startup mentality. That was at a time where we were basically coming out of the steam engine times, and electricity was the next hot thing. I don't think there was a conference where somebody stood up and said one more thing, and then it was electricity. But anyways, we started in Elberfeld or Wuppertal, which actually happens to be, I know, the first site where Shift Connector got introduced by Andreas a little while later. And then around 1900, the company decided it needed more space and started the location in Leverkusen. And that also at the time was really visionary, right? I mean, you used the River Rhine to bring in the raw materials. You set up the first line of basic chemical production next to the river and basically worked your way away from the river with each synthesis step that you did, so that in the end you had dyes, color runs, for example, that were close to the just emerging railroad to be able to transport the materials away. So for the time, revolutionary concept, great material flow design, and then doing that somewhere where nobody was living except a few fishermen in the Rhine River and a few farmers. So you needed some incentives. You needed a nice office. You needed a soccer club so that the people had something to do in their spare time. And obviously that is where some of these clubs came from. That was company history. You are familiar with all the industrial revolutions. I think what's important to recognize is that just by the stages, it doesn't mean that the former stages are irrelevant. And so as we are talking about Industry 4.0, Industry 5.0, we also have to realize that real life can look quite diverse. So Andreas already mentioned, I had the pleasure to join the team Mutens here last fall, came here in October. And in November, I took the opportunity to take this picture here, and that was not in the Museum of Technology, but that was in our production building 935C. Mike knows it well, as he's the production manager there now, with the reactor behind it. This was still live equipment. Yeah, so we were still operating, and it was the last of these types of equipment. We were still operating a batch reactor that is sitting next to it with an on-site automation system based on analog technology. Yeah. At the same time, we were heavy using Shift Connector, migrating it to the cloud. So what is the message? We have to fit that together. Yeah? I mean, the chemical industry is one where innovation cycles, until they really hit each and every part of the company, take a long time. Yeah? And that's actually why I think this is also one strength of Shift Connector, having this in mind, what the real world looks like. And so I think that was also a little bit one of the shortcomings of the Industry 4.0 concept. Yeah, it was very much focused on the full automation of the entire value chain. Yeah, basically machines ordering the components that they need from other machines without human interference as much as possible. And I think we came to realize that that is maybe a nice vision and ambition, but quite a way away from how we operate and how we actually can move. And that's where we need to recognize these real-world digitalization challenges. Yeah, not all information is digitized. Yeah, it's a confession, but that's the truth. Connecting and interpreting disparate data is an important element. Yeah, I don't have all information in one system. When I was a young engineer, I was also full of drive and vision and said, you know, here is my system. If you just install it in all plants at Bayer, the world will be a better place. And then I had a lot of struggles to recognize that that is not going to happen. Yeah. Also, if you have all that information, you quickly have to deal with, on the one hand, it can be too much information. You lose, you don't see what you're looking for. And sometimes you don't have enough. And lastly, it's about the role of the human. Yeah, while Industry 4.0, I think, was very much about designing the human element out of the process, I think recognizing that humans are not machines, and also recognizing that that is a good thing. Because I think in all the hype also about artificial intelligence, we should also not forget that there are many things that humans can do like no other. Yeah, also, we would not have come here if we weren't brilliant. Yeah, so I think that's something to recognize, and that's something to build in. And that's why I like the Industry 5.0 approach that does take that into consideration. So connecting the different elements, and you see the human worker in the center here, the cognitive system, so to say. Mankind can very quickly understand and learn vocabulary, for example, and crazy stuff that you are not familiar with. And also recognizing patterns that are changing all the time. Yeah? But also there are things where humans should be supported. And that is where the automation of what is called the cyber-physical production system plays a big role. What sensors, what information gathering can we use in order to provide an environment where human can focus on decision-making, adapting to new situations? And that is reflected in the Industry 5.0 approach. So where the human is strong, use him or her, and where it can be augmented by artificial intelligence, by other means, do so. I think that's also a very critical element for safety considerations. In the chemical process industry, we always deal with processes that have the potential to go severely wrong. Unfortunately, we still have examples of that in our industry today. And to recognize where does a human have the overview and where do I have a system that provides the safety layers that are required to support them. So often we say our employees are our biggest asset, yeah? And then I say, if that is the case, then treat them that way. Give them the information they need so that they have a chance. One terrible example where that went wrong, I don't know if you remember, quite a few years back, we had the terrible accident of the Air France flight coming back from Brazil back to Europe, where they got into a severe thunderstorm. In the end, it was the pitot tube freezing over, and the cabin crew had information overflow but could not determine the actual situation of the flight. In the end, the airplane crashed into the Atlantic, all people dead. And I think these are situations that we must avoid at all costs. So having the right information, having reliable information, or also being able to identify information that is not trustworthy is essential. All right, linking all that back to our lovely company, Health for All, Hunger for None is our vision that we strive for as a company. And I think Bayer, with its pharmaceutical, consumer health and crop science business, is well set up to tackle some of these challenges. Why do I say this? Because that's why we are in Mutens producing active ingredient for crop protection products. So basically, whenever our products come into play, when fields are rotting away, some fungi are tackling the crop, and then you lose quickly 50, 60, 70% of your crop. And that is something that we as people cannot afford. We don't have enough space on the planet to feed everybody if we don't get the crops that we sow there. So just a few quick facts about Mutens as a site here. We produce roughly 10,000 tons of chemicals. We have 20 chemical steps that we produce in 2 manufacturing plants. Of course, we run the operation 24/7. Now we have 280 people. The majority of them are shift workers. What we have proven over and over again is that we can increase capacity quite a bit. We can also reduce costs, and the competition is there. Obviously, we live here in a high wage environment. We pay the people well. Everybody has a high standard of living here, and we are competing more and more with competitors from India and China. Wages are different there. Some of the environmental conditions are different there, and that pressure is something that we do feel. And the positive thing is we manage to remain competitive. And we do that based on data and by utilizing also the information that our employees have, and that's then the link also to Shift Connector that we've experienced over the years. We are really happy to be a reliable partner, even though Mutens was not the first user, and even though Bayer was not the customer number 1. I got to learn or got to meet customer number 1 over some champagne earlier, and that's a great pleasure and honor. Congratulations to starting even earlier. Yeah. So I think while Andreas basically roamed the Bayer sites, I also had the pleasure, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but the product name is on here anyways. One of my first projects was to roll out OSI Soft's PI system within our former material science division, which is now Covestro. And I, at that time, got to know Pat Kennedy, who was the founder of OSI Soft, and all the people from Pat always said that Pat always told them when they are driving around, they should look for smoking chimneys, and that's their next customer. So wherever a smoking chimney was indicating somebody is producing something, the sales guys should go there and ask them if they have pie yet. And then they sold them a piece of pie. Anyway, so I just imagine, Andreas, that you were touring the Wupper Valley and quite similar. Very good and very successful. But never mind. We expanded the use, and I think one early indication that you were doing something right is our competition or our selection process for an OEE solution. As Bayer, as many of the big chemical players or any company really, when you do a selection process, you set up a list of criteria. Here 63 requirements, and I can only imagine all the engineers building the Excel spreadsheets where we then were putting pluses and minuses, and quite an impressive result. To get 61 or 63 right, of course, then makes the decision easy. Shift connector OEE is a solution of choice. We then rolled it out across many sites, and then we come back to disparate data. We have important information, but it is in different systems, and I think that is the next advantage, being able to pull that information in, be it OSI Pi in that case, be it later on ESPN-Tech IP21 or the SAP connection, I think are all elements of what makes Shift Connector unique and very practicable. You can always find some system where you can do documentation like electronic lab journals and so on, but bringing it all together and bringing it together in a fashion that is easy to use, where also the people on shift are happy to have it as a handover tool, for example, for the shift change. We had the global rollout, and then the latest additions, I would say, are the Smart Search and Smart Input Assistant, as well as adopting also newer data transmission technologies like the Kafka interface, just to name a few. Personal anecdote on the Smart Search, when I was starting in October, in Mutens, we have these monitors, right, where we have news, what's new in Bayer, what's happening on the street, etc. And then there was a video explaining Shift Connector and the smart search capability. And it had in it a lot of interviews with some of our team members, and it always had the name under there. And as somebody who is a new guy and supposed to greet everybody by name, I was carefully watching the video all the time and said, that's Philipp Pripitsch. Okay, very good. And, oh, Martin Areger. Very good. Yeah, anyways, good. All right, and then let me come to the close of my presentation. What's important for us, and that's kind of the wish list here going forward, basically coming from the pre-digital age to recognizing that the human also plays an important role and will continue to play an important role. We can imagine next steps that will help us. So the further developing the Smart Input Assistant, also introducing it, is one element. We've been talking about the Shift Connector Go application, so enabling our shift workers to do workflow-oriented tasks in the plant digitally is something I think that is a big next step. And here benefiting from the environment that the colleagues already know, having it available at their handheld device in the plant would be a really cool next step. And I know we are looking at pilots within Bayer to do that, and Mutens is happy to go next. Building on Shift Connector OEE, looking for predictive analytical capabilities so that we can better identify not only the status quo and what we did, but also means and possibilities to improve the situation to drive OEE forward. And visualizing that information so that people can readily understand it and quickly digest it are further ideas where we would like to continue to walk with you. So with that, I hope I could give you a little bit of an impression of where we are coming from. I'd like to thank you for your attention and hope we have a great evening together.